Okay, today I am going to show you guys how I wrap a Stone Cabochon. Um, I'm just showing pictures of my materials, what I use, how much I use, and you can just pause and read. So here's my Stone Cabochon photo millimeters. It's quite large. So what I do is I take my two white strings and I tie a knot in the middle. I'm going to do one half, untie the knots and do the other half. Because I do my cabochons on my board. Some of you guys have nifty little tools. I don't use that. I just pin it to my board and do it this way. So I've pinned the white down. Now I'm using a light pink and a dark pink so you guys can see how I'm doing the ladder. I typically wouldn't do two colors, but for the purposes of this tutorial, I am, so you can see. Again, I've tied a knot in the middle in half, and I'm pinning it down to my board. These will be my working strings, what I create the knots with. Now with the white, what I'm going to do is to secure them in place so that they will be the ladder will be the size that need it to be. I use T-pins, make a little kind of a square formation with it. As you can see, when I tug on the strings, it creates a nice thing. The T-pins work really great for that purpose. And we're going to go back and forth, and here we go with the first string. What I'm doing is called a reverse double half hitch. I'm trying to go slow so you can see how I'm making the knot. And because I'm using the Chinese knotting cord, you can pull it really tightly, which is how I prefer to make my wraps. Okay, underneath, over, and pull. So it's like a half hitch, but because we have to do it vertical this way, it's called a reverse double half hitch, I guess. So you take one string over and under to make a little swirly, and then under and through, under, over, through. I don't know if this makes sense, guys. I'm sorry. I'm terrible at explaining the actual knots. I'm trying to go slow so you can see. Pull it under, up, just really watch my hand. Oh, I made a mistake there. Trying to zoom out a little bit so you can see my hands. Try that again. String goes under, through, up, tight. So as you can see with the dark, well, I always start on the right is the one that goes over the top, and the one on the left goes under. And because I'm using 2 color strings, it goes back and forth. So now the pink ended up on the right. Now it's going to go over to the left to make the hitch. And the dark pink comes from under. Okay, so I'm going to explain. In my very first video I put up a few days ago, I wrote that there were 51 knots on each side. That one fit that stone, and I think it was because of the color I used, it wound up being 51. For whatever reason, this cabochon, we will end up with 52 on each side. Sometimes it's 51, sometimes it's 52, sometimes it's 50. It's just like, my belief is like every roll of cord is never quite the same. And even though all of my Chinese knotting cord is 0.08 millimeters, they're all slightly just a little different from each color to each roll. I think that the dark pink is slightly bigger than the light pink, and there's just nothing you can do with that. That's just manufacturing. So what I'm gonna have you guys do is stop at 25. When you get to 25 on the left and 25 on the right, we'll stop. We will untie the knots and do 25 on the other side, the other half, and you can see with your stone, with your string, if it's enough to make the wrap. I did 25 and 25. I picked up my stone with my ladder, and I just needed 2 more knots on each side, and it wound up to be 52. So again, like every project, every stone, every set of string I use is always just slightly different. But for the design that we're doing, that doesn't much matter. If you wind up with 50 or 52, you can still make the same design, even though you might have less strings you attach to the cab. I'll figure out a way to explain that at a later time, because of the number for the underneath part, the number of leaves I use, however many stitches I've used on the wrap, it never just seems to matter. You just adjust it, and you might do the top layer design slightly different than you might have in a previous design. That's all. Alright, so continue on until you've reached 25 on the left and 25 on the right. So now I'm unpinning, and I'm going to untie the knots and continue on with the ladder. I like to do it half and half. It just makes my life easier. I can use the same amount of string. I wind up with the same amount of leftover string on both sides, because oftentimes I use the strings from the ladder oftentimes get incorporated into the top part, which makes the pendant part. Like I go up and use those strings to make it bend over, and I also use the strings from the ladder to connect the pendant to the cab. Like the part that you would run the necklace from. Yeah, terrible at explaining things. But once I finish filming all of these tutorials, I really hope that you guys just understand just by watching, like, how it's all done. Just securing it down. Now we're on the first knot on the opposite side. Once you've done it enough times, you get a pretty good idea of how long it actually needs to be. So I just knot, and then I count after. But if you want to keep track of like the half that you just did, you can use some kind of pin or some kind of method. All right, so we're done now. I have 52 and 52. Those are reverse double half hitch knots. Okay. So now I'm going to show you how to wrap it. There's the front. This is the back. Oh wait. No, this is the back. Sorry. We're going to place our stone in there like that. It just perfectly cradles. So while I'm gonna pin it to the board. While I'm doing that, I'm sort of squeezing with my thumb and finger. I'm squeezing the cord sort of down towards the top. And we take our top two strings, the top two white strings, just tie it together. That's okay if your stone isn't perfectly in there. We will make sure that it's secure in there when we flip it over to do the back. So this is fine. Just make sure that this knot is really nice and tight. You can pull it tight, tight, tight. That's what I love about the Chinese knotting strings. It's super, super tight. So now I'm just, squeezing it in, making sure it's cool, it's good. Looks nice, feels nice. Again, I'm squeezing it so that it's securely in there, and I'm going to pin it again. I sort of pin it in an angle. For those who didn't watch that video, I have I don't know, 20-inch maybe thick styrofoam, it's that thick compact styrofoam couch cushion, it was a chair cushion, and I used cardboard and a pillowcase. I just shoved the cardboard in there, and I have to change the cardboard every so often, but it works out really well. I love it. All right, so you saw from the back that I secured it. I'm just adjusting it a little bit, tighten it. So here are two top strings on the front. You'll have a dark pink and a light pink on the left, dark pink and a light pink on the right, and two white at the bottom. That's the back. This is what it will look like when you use 4 strings to tie a cabochon, to wrap a stone. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the end because you've gathered it all at the top. Now I'm going to show you, I take the top 2 strings right underneath the 2 white strings, and I, just using my sewing needle, go in from the bottom, because I never use those strings. Those strings wind up just being a part of the pendant that I secure from the back. So I just tuck them out of the way because they're never necessary in my design. I sometimes use the other ones, but not always. It depends. And yeah, use the lighter, pull a tail. Chinese knotting cords is the best for making tails. Okay, and I'm just going to, I trip up a little bit, like I get my cords a little bit mixed up, but who doesn't do that? So I just slip it right underneath the bottom knot. That's the back side. I just somehow got the other string mixed in there, but that's all right. You can just easily remedy that. I took my needle and I fished out the string that didn't belong there. There you go. Okay, now see those two strings that we just used our needle to put under? Give us an extra loop for our design. And I'll just tie them together with a knot. They're not really like tied to anything, they're just there. Okay, so that's it. That is my method on how I wrap a stone cabochon without any fancy gadget or whatever. I've seen those wooden block things. I just pin everything to my board. It works out well for me. I've gotten quite used to it. I know at the beginning, wrapping a stone is one of those things people often struggle with. It's like, how do you get it good? How do you make it tight? The trick I found was using the Chinese knotting cord. Yes, like when you buy the Chinese knotting cord, the colors are not exactly the same as your working cords, your design cords, but I like it that way. I like having contrast. All right, so this is how big the ladder actually is, and that will be all for that. Thank you guys. Hope you learned how to wrap a stone cabochon. Bye bye.